us here who are book official. And so please stay, and I'm going to sign off and walk out in the field and give the Gettysburg Address. Come closer. You get to be 113. Your voice only carries so far. 213. The Gettysburg Address was actually given 2 years after this actual battle in July of '61 took place. The Gettysburg battle happened 2 years later, and the address not until the following November. But it has become a tradition here, and it is often called one of the best speeches in American history that was ever given. Maybe because it's only 2 minutes long. But I should... 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. Brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. For us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the great task which they who fought here and thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task that remains before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom in the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Well, the actual address for the ceremony, and Professor Everett said, I think you got nearer the point of the occasion in 2 minutes than I did in 2 hours. Lincoln wrote him back and he said, they never would have forgiven you if you'd spoke any less, and they never would have forgiven me if I spoke any longer. So with that I will conclude, and I think see, I told you they were coming, I better get out of here. If you stick around, the generals and the presidents will have a few questions and answers time, so think of something really good.
Thank you, gentlemen. You did an awesome job.
Thank you.
Anybody cover out in the field yet?
Unfixed bayonet. Put 2 ranks to the rear.
What'd you do? Glue that on there?
Maybe.
Let's get out the way. Shoulder, arm. 2 ranks.
Gentlemen, nice job. My wife's Raglan. Yeah, right. So you know what that means. You know what it means?
Her shawl.
No. It's her house coat. Now my wife Rita didn't put a shawl over my face because you have these young men in the cavalry that think I'm capturing Jefferson Davis. But prior to that, the Wisconsin cavalry and the 4th Michigan cavalry fought each other, just like Yankees to fight each other. But that's what happened. 2 of them died. They're buried at what was 53. I was also 53.
Great. Anybody else? Oh, come on.
1819 to 1819, there's 200 years. Basically almost 250 years before the war starts, or 230 years. If you're entrenched in that kind of an idea, and plus the colonies, with the Constitution, all 13 colonies had slavery. And one by one, they started outlawing it. Until the cotton gin in 1793, Eli Whitney, and all of a sudden things started to change. Once you become wealthy, do you want to stop being wealthy?
Well, my answer might be a little bit looking. I consider the start of the Mexican War. 1846, we go to war with Mexico, and with the end of the Mexican War, we acquire almost a third of what we consider now the western United States. That was California, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, parts of Colorado, Utah. Well, you know what was called the Missouri Compromise. It basically said everything south of the southern border of Missouri would be slave, everything north of that would be free. And of course, when we go to the war with Mexico, we did it with volunteer troops, all states. It was assumed that after that war, that new territory would be open for slavery. 1848, gold was discovered in California. It gets put on the fast track and becomes a state. 1850, it's admitted as a free state. It is not subdivided, although it was discussed. With that, they include the fugitive slave law. Now, there had been fugitive slave laws prior to this. This becomes one of the most stringent. And here's what it says. If you live in a northern state and you encounter a slave, you are required to turn that slave over to the county sheriff. If you do not do that, and it's found out that you harbored a slave, you will be fined the price of that slave. At that time, that could be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. This starts Northerners thinking about slavery that had never thought about it before. Because after all, that's in a different state, that doesn't affect us. And then from there, we go through the whole 1850s with the Kansas-Nebraska Act, trying to settle this issue about slavery in the territories. Stephen A. Douglas tries to settle this with popular sovereignty. A young man by the name of Abraham Lincoln challenges Stephen A. Douglas and says, the problem with the Kansas-Nebraska Act is it's unconstitutional. Why? Only Congress can administer a territory. And of course, if the Kansas-Nebraska Act becomes law, you've now taken a power that Congress has and given it to the territory. This, of course, starts to create other issues. We go into Bleeding Kansas, which is a pseudo-civil war. With this, we start getting extremists like John Brown. This creates a lot of concern in the South. Our Northerners are going to come south and agitate for a slave uprising. And of course, it culminates finally with the Dred Scott decision, as do blacks have any political or legal standing in the United States. Abraham Lincoln runs on the platform. He will not oppose slavery where it exists, but he will not allow it to expand into the territories.
Any other questions? Very good.
Out of water. And basically, I put $100,000 on my head, so I spent 2 years there wanting a trial. Whether or not secession was legal, they wouldn't give it to me. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said we can't try these men, they might win. So I got out of prison, went to Canada to join my family, went to Europe, ended up in Memphis, Tennessee, and then I ended up in Biloxi, Mississippi, writing a book called The Rise and Fall of the Confederacy.
President of Washington College in Lexington, Virginia, which is now known as Washington Lee University.
I remained in the Army. After the war, General Grant divides the United States up into military districts. I was number 3 in seniority. And he said, which district do you want? Well, I being a very service-oriented person said, I'll take the Northeast District, so the headquarters could be in my hometown of Philadelphia. And I walked to work every day for the next 7 years. I want to add one other thing. I did have one military engagement at Indian raid. It seems the Irish of both sides, both north and south, decide they want to invade Canada, hold it hostage, so the British will get out of Ireland. General Grant told me to take care of it. I did. I told him, I said, you can go to Canada if you want, and then you can deal with the British regulars and the Canadian militia, but if you come back to the United States, I'll be waiting for you.
I had 2 sons that were major generals in the Confederacy. One son that was a captain. I had one daughter that died in 1862. My other 3 daughters that lived with my wife in Richmond.
My oldest son, George Jr., is my aide-de-camp. He was with me at Gettysburg and served throughout the end of the war. My next younger son, Spencer, would die of tuberculosis